Grand evening, everyone. It is Friday, January 30th, 2026, 1900 hours and 15 minutes Central Standard Time. And we have especially Iran to talk about when it comes to that imminent war. It will not just be Iran, that is for certain. It is not specifically going to just be Iran and the US that's involved in such a small thing, almost like the strikes that happened the last time. It's far beyond that. So we'll start here. So the UK and Canada now have made quite a few agreements with the Chinese. They seem to be very much almost siding with the Chinese at this point. The leaders of the UK and Canada are very supportive of the Chinese regime, and they have a lot of communist views. It really does seem. So much of Canada and the UK entirely, it seems, is siding more and more with the Chinese. Now we have Iran, especially in the capital of Iran, in Tehran. The mayor of Tehran has announced that underground parking lots and metro stations across the city will be transformed into war shelters, like bunkers, pretty much war shelters, possibly even fallout shelters that they could become. It may get to that point where the U.S. uses tactical nuclear weapons on their nuclear sites and a lot of military bases. It is very possible, very high chance. There's a good chance that that happens, that they'll use tactical nuclear weapons to target some of the most underground and hard to reach military sites there in Iran. Then we have this here, a further deployment, looks like to the Middle East. This was about a day ago. 4 KC 46A Pegasus tankers just left the US and they flew across the Atlantic Ocean then about yesterday. They are flying together with 6 EA 18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, which took off from Virginia. So these could potentially be used against the Iranian regime. They'll do electronic warfare across Iran using those some kind of fighter jets, electronic warfare aircraft, which is interesting. It must jam the electrical systems and nearby electronics. That's usually what electronic warfare is like. Maybe they have some kind of EMP weapons on them. They have something, probably many weapons that could damage the power grids there and other nearby vehicles and other electronic devices in Iran that it could target those things utilizing electronic warfare. Then we have the Russians and the Chinese. This has hardly been reported at all. This was a very good find. So there are Chinese and Russian warships that are active in the Gulf of Oman near the Strait of Hormuz. So the Russians and the Chinese are already there with some of their navies to help Iran. To help Iran, and as it says there, to help Iran close the Strait of Hormuz. That's where about 20% of the world's oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. That is one of the main reasons Europe and the UK will likely get involved. They need to have oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. They're very reliant on that area too. And so are the Russians, and so are the Chinese, especially the Chinese. It's one of the only places that the Russians and the Chinese get their oil from is Iran, in that area, their territories. And as for a moment here, we have the president's administration, the US president's administration, the Trump administration has held covert meetings with separatists in Alberta, Canada. So it looks like Alberta will be becoming its own nation very soon. It is very likely that Alberta secedes from Canada. Alberta will be one of the first parts of Canada to become its own nation. Then it is very likely, as it's there, that Alberta becomes part of the United States, maybe as the 51st state. So that is another very likely candidate for the 51st state out of, when it comes to there, Venezuela or Greenland. It's also looking like Alberta will become a state, whether it's the 51st or after. Then we have this here from the Iran Observer, and another news source, drop site. Couple sources there. The U.S. has informed its allies that it will attack Iran this coming weekend with the aim of regime change. The U.S. hopes that an attack on the Iranian government will trigger a new wave of protests. It's not going to only trigger a new wave of protests, it will definitely help those revolutionaries and protesters over there. That's not all it will do, though. It's going to trigger Russia and China to go immediately into Iran and help Iran because they've had a long alliance for a very long time. And they're absolute military allies. They just signed a strategic pact, a strategic military pact. The Russians and the Chinese will fully support Iran, unlike Venezuela. Even when it comes to Venezuela, that's not off the table. The Russians and the Chinese could still go and help the current government there in Venezuela. They could support them fighting against the U.S. by sending weapons and supplies and even getting directly involved when it comes to Venezuela. Though that's the thing most people do not realize is that the Russians and the Chinese will get almost immediately involved when it comes to Iran. Both of those countries, they need the oil that is in Iran. Without it, the Chinese will have to literally get oil from very few other places in the world and maybe even Western countries. So they absolutely will defend Iran shortly after it becomes under attack. After the U.S. invasion, the attacks begin on Iran. As soon as this weekend, that will happen. It is very likely to happen later on tonight or tomorrow. I expect it to be as soon as later on tonight in the coming hours, the first attacks on Iran. And let's not forget about the very deadly Nipah virus. It originated from India and some bats over there, large fruit bats, I think. So that deadly Nipah virus has now prompted authorities in Thailand and Malaysia to step up airport health screening to prevent the spread of infection. So the Nipah virus is spreading. It has become a very serious thing. It may be the next global pandemic, far worse than the previous one, we'll say. If that spreads throughout the world in the same way, especially if it has gain of function to it, it'll be far worse than the previous pandemic. Then we have this here. The Office of Management and Budget has confirmed the federal government will shut down at midnight tonight. So I've been seeing conflicting reports. I've been seeing, oh, the Senate passed the bill. They didn't. Uh, so we'll see at midnight tonight. This seems very accurate, though. I did see like the official statement, a document to do with this. So the government may shut down as soon as around midnight tonight. And what's interesting is the attacks on Iran will be right around that same time or shortly after. So there will be no need for congressional approval for the president to do uh, whatever he may end up doing when it comes to Iran. Him and the military that he orders there to do carry out the operation when it comes to Iran, trying to change the regime there, which it's not going to be that simple. It will not be an easy thing. Nothing like what happened in Venezuela. That was very easy and small in comparison to when it comes to Iran. Once Iran is attacked, shortly after, the Chinese, I would say maybe even first, will support Iran in every way they know how. It is a very important place for oil and resources for China and Russia. As for Russia, it is a very strategic location, Iran, that they cannot afford to lose. It is a very similar situation like Ukraine. It's a strategic location the Russians cannot afford to lose and have a regime there that will not support the Russians and the Chinese. So the attacks on Iran are very imminent as soon as this weekend. Some people think it could happen 5 months from now. That is not gonna happen. It will. It'll happen in the coming days. I don't believe it goes past this weekend when it comes to the attacks on Iran. They've been setting up there for weeks. Everything is just about in position. to deploy into Iran. So they've been positioning, planning. They are quite ready to deploy into Iran and carry out their operation, their war on Iran. That the main objective is regime change as of right now. Iran itself will retaliate. Iran is one of the most powerful countries in the Middle East with thousands of years of history. They are not a weak country. They are not to be underestimated. They could even hit several military bases there in the Middle East. And I believe Iran has nuclear weapons. If not, they were even given nuclear weapons since the last time they were attacked. They were able to create nuclear weapons even the last time that they were attacked. So I think for sure Iran has nuclear weapons and they will use them. The Iranian government will use them if they are pushed far enough, or even right away if they want to. One of the first things Iran will likely do is attack the American military bases, the Navy, and Israel almost immediately after being attacked. Those are some of the first things that Iran will do. So I will be back very soon, possibly later tonight. I think I'll fully be covering this while the attacks are happening on Iran. Very often, it's not going to be a one night thing either, like it was with Venezuela. Not at all. Not in the slightest. Iran will put up a far larger fight than most people realize. And they are not alone. They will be supported by the Russians and the Chinese. They have a very strong alliance. Iran, even by itself, for years, has been able to fight the U.S. It's one of the only countries that stands a chance against the U.S. in the world. They're a very powerful country in the world. They have some very advanced missile technology. They have for many years. They specialize in missile development technology, making them using missiles of all different kinds. So once again, I will be back soon. Let's see, the price of gold has somehow fallen below 5,000. Wow, that is very unusual. Price of gold is $4,895 at this time. I did see that the gold and silver prices fell in a very big way, though it will surge, especially after the attack on Iran, the first attacks. Once those first attacks happen, especially, it will skyrocket through the roof. Gold is going to likely hit $10,000 by the end of this year if everything is not destroyed before then. So this is going to be a very direct war with Iran, Russia, and China once these attacks fully begin. I will be back soon with further updates on the war on Iran. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and even donate if you will. I put that in the description of this initially a live stream recording that is posted to the live section of my YouTube channel. Love, light, and blessings to you all.